Morning, everybody. 8:15 a.m. Welcome to my channel. What a day! What a day yesterday. Started off with some volatility, and the market pushed up initially. Part of my pre-market scenario. Nasdaq, especially holding the 249s, and of course, ES had problems with that most traded price of the week, 67.55s. That was also my short scenario in the ES. Couldn't capitalize it and thought about shorting there, but the market was just uncertain. It was just in a range at that point. It wasn't very weak, and then it fell apart. So the scenarios were correct, right? Can't argue that. I did go for a long, got some excursion, and then just got hit break even. Went for another one, hit break even, and then I was done. I wasn't going to trade FOMC. Now, FOMC yesterday was not typical at all. Usually there's super big volatility up, down, up. This was just barely up at all, just down. And a lot of it has to do with the uncertainty. Fed Powell was talking about the impacts of this war with Iran, right? The inflation uncertainty, the price of crude. I think he even talked about possible rate hikes. They're not on the table, but I think he spoke about them. So that just shook the market. Shook it. Okay. Now, to put things in perspective, we're not even at last week's lows in futures. Not yet. We're not even at last week's lows in the NASDAQ. We're not even at last month's lows in the NASDAQ. Why is that? Because technology is still getting money, flows into it. Believe it or not. So, actually, technology again was the relatively strength in the morning. Now, later on, that changed. But what's really making this market weird is when Claude, Anthropic threatened like SaaS companies. Software, like in particular the IGV ETF, right, holds software, tanked. Like stocks down huge, like ServiceNow, Salesforce, a bunch of software stocks, huge crash. Okay, that's priced in already. Like Microsoft fell as well. It's weird because like that is getting money flows still. If that didn't happen, this market would be down more because we just crashed in software basically. So how much more can that go? It could, but I believe, okay, money flows every week. I've been seeing technology lead a bunch of days. It's not that's the canary in the coal mine, I guess, in the other way. That has not, that canary's still alive. If that software didn't get priced in, this market would be down a lot more. Okay? That's just my observation. All right, now, currently, the market is gapping down again. Okay, we failed to fill the gap yesterday in the ES. And we, right here, show you real quick, futures. You can see we tapped the 200-day moving average in ES, also in the NASDAQ. And you can see to the left, that swing low here, right there from the past, and right here has not been hit yet. Same thing in the NASDAQ. Remember, look at the NASDAQ. I want to show you what I was talking about, how the money flows going into that. Look at the NASDAQ. It's kind of moving like it's pretty much moving straight sideways, right? Look at the yes, down, 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 down. It's not like the NASDAQ. See, the NASDAQ's kind of straight. It's kind of like horizontal, and then ES has been moving lower. It's because money's flowing out of financials, discretionary, staples. Staples was the laggard yesterday, right? Usually that's not the laggard when you move down. That's a little suspect. Staples was the laggard. That's not typical, right? Now, when markets all like we're in a crash, we're going down, every sector will be red. You won't have highlights, right? But yesterday, Staples? Really? Interesting, right? So Staples was the laggard. That was so interesting yesterday. Now, I think we can get into this. Now, we have home sales, 10 a.m. That sometimes can move the market, right? Thank God this rollover is like almost done. Monday, Tuesday showed it a little bit. Yesterday, we had a little more price action that was a little more normal. Now we're done with FOMC. So the VIX is back up to a 26. Okay. The metals have been getting smashed. Silver's down 10.64% right now. And I thought it was because of the dollar. It's not. It's just really getting hurt. Okay. So a lot of market's just nuts. Okay. Crude is up 1% right now. There's a lot of stuff going on. Iran is definitely hitting its neighbors. So I don't know. It's wild. It's really wild. And I mean, like Trump or not, like what he says, it's almost over. It's not almost over. It's not. Clearly, it's not. Right. So let's get into it, folks. Welcome to my channel. My name is Steven Gonzalez. Use market profile and volume profile to find structure in the markets, along with supply and demand gamma, expose levels of the most traded price of the year, the month, the week, and the previous day. That is my edge. Okay, so what I bring to you. Now, once the market opens, I use my market internals, my bread and butter. I want to see what's driving the market off the open. I don't care about yesterday's close. Okay, also use a little ICT, some anchor VWAPs. All right. Now, every day, I do this in the morning. Hopefully, you can subscribe, set that alert to give you the market story, the market news, the economic calendar, technical analysis, and I give you long and short trade scenarios in the NASDAQ and ES futures later on. Okay. Now, if you want more in-depth coverage, you're going to join my Discord. That's Confluence Trading. Go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link and sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Okay. Now, if you go to my Discord, you will see the daily receipts. All right. Now, I've been compiling every day with timestamps my calls. Okay. Now, this week with the rollover was a little different. That was weird Monday. But yesterday, my scenarios were on point. Okay. Like I said, I'm not the best trader in the world, but I could definitely read that market. And not just up, down. Like, we're going to get resistance here. We should fall here. And sometimes they don't set up with a beautiful setup. Right? Now, everybody knows as a trader, I can have my scenarios right, but then, like, all right, I was right, but it really didn't set up for me. Right? Like I said, I thought about shorting the ES at 60. What is that? 67.55. I would have looked like a genius, right? So, now, that being said, let's get into futures watch list. All right, look at that VIX, up 4.9%, 4.90% to a 26. All right, so right now we're going to have some nice volatility today. All right, followed by your 10-year yield. That is not going to be good for your mortgage rates. Okay, up 1.22% at a 4.3 yield. Crude back up 0.85. Not going anywhere yet, folks. Dollar is up a little bit. 30-year bonds are being sold, hence the yields will be up. Dow is down 0.5%. ES down 0.5%. Nasdaq's down 0.63. The Russell's down almost 1% with the yields rising. Ethereum down 1.28. Bitcoin just can't get over that 70K. Back under it, down 1.90. Gold getting slaughtered at almost down 6%. Silver is getting slaughtered big time, down 11%, back to $68. Wow. Metals are getting hammered. Okay. Mag 7 Plus. You got a leader here in Apple. Apple's up 0.31. Then the rest of the pack is down. Let's go to the 1%ers. Tesla, down 1%. Over 1%. Nvidia, over 1%. Down 1.13. Broadcom, down 1.22. 1.30. AMD down 1.23. AMD actually had a decent day yesterday. Coinbase almost down 3%. The Bitcoin proxy. Top sectors, let's do it. Exxon, Chevron, no surprise there. Walmart, there's a safety play. So Staples getting a little more love today, even though they were a lagger. Yes, it's so weird. All right, now top sectors: Oracle down 1.34, GEV for Nova, my baby, down 1.45. Whoa, that was a large sell order right there. 66.40 in the ES. All right, Caterpillar down 1.53. The mining, look at that NEM down 8.77. Wow, chasing longs out of the metals. All right, sectors. No surprise. Energy up 0.65. Now remember, energy does not move on markets at all. Barely on the blip on a radar. Okay. Staples flat. Then you got all red. Okay. Let's start with the half percenters. Financials down 0.55. Technology down 1.05. Basic materials, that's going to have metals, mining down 1.30. And your laggard today is semis. So when semis are the laggard, that's usually a risk-off market. Sometimes that happens to get a bump. Now, remember what I said about futures. Didn't even hit last week's lows in futures. We did hit it in SPY yesterday, and that's where we closed. But now we're about to smash through last week's lows right now. Right now. Okay? Something must have been said, maybe. I know Besant was just talking about filling the strategic petroleum reserves or whatever, but that doesn't matter. That's all smoke and mirrors. Futures trading moves the crude. Futures traders, speculators, move crude, not whatever the president or whatever they say does with the strategic petroleum. It doesn't move crude at all. So that's smoke and mirrors. Just like metals, you can't control it. That's why the Fed doesn't like to talk about oil, because he has no tools to do anything about oil at all. Okay? All right. Let's go move on to economic calendar. All right, today, jobless claims, 8:30. That hasn't really moved the market, okay? Philly Fed doesn't really move the market really either. 10 a.m. you got new home sales. Now, one thing you got to look for today is 30-year mortgage, 10-year tips auction. 30-year mortgage maybe at 12 p.m. Maybe. I don't know. I thought I saw a 30-year bond auction. So let's just go back to the 2-star. 10 a.m. new home sales. Okay? Let's go to Trump's schedule. All right, let's see. Thursday, let's see what he's got. Okay. President participates in a greeting with the Prime Minister of Japan. President participates in a bilateral meeting. So around 11 a.m., just be careful. All right. Okay. That's all I see for today. Let's check out the juice. Like I said, Besant just, let me see here. I know he just talked. Okay, let's see here. Global equities fell further as a new surge in oil and petrol prices fueled fears that the Middle East war will spark inflation and slow GDP. Bonds fell during the second day of major central bank meetings. U.S. Treasury Secretary Besant, the U.S. could do another SPR release to keep prices down. That doesn't work, like I told you. It doesn't work. Okay. Let's see here. I don't see any red. Yeah. Okay. Nothing really to see here. I think this today, that's stale. Didn't get updated today. Nope. Okay. Okay. Micron did report. So let's look here. Delta Airlines. Let's go over to Chevron and Exxon. Were slightly higher after Iran retaliated 2 strikes on crucial gas deposit with bombardments of energy facilities across the Middle East. Delta Airlines and United Airlines, 2 stocks sensitive to an uptick in fuel costs ticked down, as did cruise operators, Norwegian Cruise Lines, and Carnival. Micron's Technology's final second quarter revenue nearly tripled year on year, and earnings per share rose nearly eightfold, but shares fell more than 6% in pre-market trade. The chipmaker said it would spend over $25 billion on new manufacturing facilities in the fiscal 2026, about $5 billion more than prior forecasts. Interesting. Gold declined for a 7th straight day, weighing on metal mining stocks like Newmont. That's what I talked about. Freeport McMoran. The yellow metal has underperformed as expectations for elevated interest rates and a firmer U.S. dollar to take some shine off the bullion's appeal. Five below, shares rose sharply after the retail's first quarter net sales forecast topped expectations. Okay. All right. I think we're going to be done there. I think we're ready for the internals. On an FOMC day, that was not typical. Not very typical. All right. Now, this was where I got long. I think on this pullback. Was that pullback? I think it was this pullback, and I was like, "Woo, let's do it." And then it just went sideways on me and got hit break even somewhere around here. Okay. And then I went again after this sweep right here. I believe I got in again, and then it took me out break even around right there. All right. Now, internally, it just was not very weak. It was kind of neutral. And then, boom, as we got right at 2 o'clock, boom, 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 boom. Just nothing Powell said the market liked. Okay. Earlier on, tech was actually up. Okay. And C, Staples, 1.63, was the laggard with consumer discretionary. Okay. These are pretty bearish. Okay. These Valdez, that's pretty bearish. Negative 2,500 and Nasdaq's pretty bearish. That means you're probably every pop's going to be sold. These are also pretty bearish readings. After this, just fell apart. Okay, just fell apart. Now, that's your internals. All right, let's move on to dailies. Like I said, we'll get into it. We'll get into it right now. Okay. Get into those daily charts now, okay? Very clear what we hit yesterday. We hit last week's lows, folks. Right here. That's last week's close. Right there. So for the week, we're down slightly. So all this little push up doesn't mean anything's gone. Okay? What's below us? That 200-day moving average, 659. Guess what, folks? We're below it right now. So this is very crucial. Do we bounce today? I don't know. The weekly expected move to the downside is 631. That's way far away. Okay? That's very far away. All the way down to there. The anchored VWAP from last year. I don't see that in the cards. Okay? But that 200-day moving average we're below it right now. Gapping down. So we did reach there. I think it was on this day. Pre-market, we were like down there, but in the real-time trading hours here, this is very key, folks. 200-day moving average. Keep an eye on it. Okay, that could be a buy point, and this market could rip up today. Keep watch of that. Okay, futures. Now, see, let me explain something. This is a back adjusted contract. That's why I'm using the letter M26. So if somebody just puts /ES, you're not going to see the same chart as me. Okay. So I showed you the Ninja Trader, which back adjusts everything from the past, right? That's why we hit the 200-day moving average, which I showed you earlier. Okay. So in futures, look what we just did. Hit last week's lows. That's a liquid level. That's a liquid level in futures. Okay. So we're still inside the big range of last week. Do we break it? I don't know. Do we break it? I don't know. This is not very bullish. Okay. But just be weary of the last week's lows, the 200-day moving average in the SPY. Okay. Big levels people all look at. Here's the cues. Okay, so remember what I said. Money's been flowing into XLK and technology because the market has been kind of moving sideways. Now, look, yesterday you didn't even hit Friday's close. You didn't even hit last month's lows or last week's lows. Last week's lows, guess what, folks? 200-day moving average is at 592.21. Guess where we are? Just below it right now at last week's lows. So does this break this big consolidation? If technology, I'm going to say it now, leads to the downside, this market's going to really break lower. Maybe you hit this swing low down here at 560. No, I'm not saying today, but I'm telling you right now, that's a big consolidation. You move, whew, telling you. The thing that happened is all those software companies had a market crash already. That's why if that didn't happen, there wasn't this Anthropic Claude stuff that happened, this market would be down. But since that had a crash, the market and technology has been getting money flows. Okay? Very important to see where QQQ's at because they're right below the 200-day moving average at 591 gapping down. Let's look at the futures. Futures. Look at the liquid level. Where does that last month's lows? The ES is way below last month's lows. That's what I was telling you. Money has been flowing into technology. Okay? Now, I'm not saying boatloads. I'm just saying look at it. It just tells you everything. If NASDAQ futures are at last month's lows and the ES, let's just go back at the ES again. Look at last month's lows in the ES. All the way up here and the market's down here. See what I'm saying? Look at the NASDAQ. We're at last month's lows. That's what I'm saying. It's been holding up because money's been flowing in to technology. It's already had a crash in software. We're not even by last week's lows at all. Okay? Moving on. Hourly charts. Let's do it. Okay. Let's go to these hourlies. Not sure who's with me today watching this. Remember, I do this if no one's watching, if one person's watching. This is part of my process, right? So, hello to everyone who is watching. If you're not watching the stream back, let's get into these hourlies. Okay? This is very crucial. And what I would say is this. Could we get a monster bounce today? Yes. Right? But what I think is what the Fed was saying yesterday is very bearish. They don't know. Inflation's rising. They don't know if they're going to do a cut. Right? There's this war. They don't know what's going to go on with it. So, it's very crucial here. Okay? We just broke that little demand zone. Boom. Okay? Undercut this swing low in the overnights. Right there. All right, so I'm going to take that off. All right, now we have a swing high here, so I'm going to chart that. Boop. Now let's look at the daily candle. It's pretty bearish. Before it was a doji. The 4-hour opened right there. Look at that 4-hour. Boof. Pretty bearish. Okay, now want to lift it up. Okay, our next demand zone is at around 66.13. Okay, our next demand zone is 66.13. And what I was just saying is, could we get a bounce? Sure. Right? However, what I think the Fed just spooked a lot of people. Okay? What he was saying yesterday, I think is going to spook the market. It might be time to break down a little more. Okay? So watch 66.13 demand zone. Okay. Now, gonna get my marker out. We'll just real quickly go over this chart. Okay, you see this level right here? That's a swing low from the past. Okay. Now, like I said, I'm going to be very cautious because this is different where I'm usually like, it's war, forget it. Like, hey, we're going to go up. Like, I'm all bullish today. I can't really say I'm all bullish, even though we're at last week's lows. I can't say it. Okay, I really can't. I think the Fed has spooked the market. Okay, yesterday that was not normal. Fed usually is all over the place and then it like makes a move. Yesterday it was just down. And then Iran doing all this like stuff. Like I said, we're trying to price this in. Now we're going to try to price in less cuts. So I think that could take us down. Maybe we bounce tomorrow. I don't know, right? I don't claim to know. But we know we're at a liquid level. We know we just hit a prior swing low. Let's see if I can bring that into the mix here. There it is. There's that prior swing. We just swept that last week's lows, which is that level. Now, you could get a reflexive bounce here. You could. I don't know. Okay. I am going to really watch because you just undercut that swing. Most people probably, if you're real short from here, short from here, short from here, probably realizing, okay, we hit that swing low, we hit last week's lows, maybe it's time to take some profits. Okay. So really watch this. And all I'm going to say is this could be the area here. All right. From these, let's get the levels here. From this swing high, the 6694s or 6695s down to last week's lows, that swing low, 6634s, and we're going to talk about the 6613s, that demand zone lower. This, I believe, is the area that we're trading in. All right, that's the area I believe we're going to trade in. We have to see. Okay, we have to see. Like I said, this is not me saying that we're going to lift off like a rocket because I don't trust this. I honestly don't know. This right now is a sweep. Okay, this is pretty nice sell off. You just took out all of those buyers and hit a liquid level. So we'll have to see. All right, let's look at our good old Nasdaq. Remember, I said relatively strong. We just took out this demand, so I'm going to get rid of that now. Okay, now look, very important. We hit last month's lows, liquid level, right? We just took out this swing low, and now we're back above it. So right now we have a confirmed sweepy sweep. Now, it's very crucial that we pay attention to this right here. This could be the stick in the ground. And we could trade in this range from 24454 up until the 247s and change. Okay? That could be a range today. We just fell all the way from 252s all the way down here. Okay? That's a big fall. Hitting where else? The 200-day moving average in the QQQ. So like I said, I think people might take profits because of that 200-day moving average in both indexes. It's, like I said, nothing's written in stone. Okay? Just know everybody looks at monthly levels, weekly levels, 200-day moving average. Everybody looks at that. Okay? Everybody. So this is a swing low that we just swept. You have the ability to at least test the 24650s. Okay? Moving on. So I'll be watching. That is a clear sweep. Do I know how much legs it has? Never know. I never know that. Okay? Whoever says that, you just never know. Okay? Let's move on to the market profile, volume profile. Okay? Now I'm also going to show you uh, what you call it here? Let's get into it. Market profile, volume profile. Okay. Love how I look at the markets this way. Oh, it's just I used to look at this and go, I don't know what the hell this guy's looking at. When I used to look at another guy look at this, I go, I don't know what that is. It's not a candlestick. I don't know what it is. Oh my God, I love looking at it like this. Just gives you a different perspective. Okay. So, what do we know? What do we know? Okay. What I do know is this. Okay. What I do know is this is a very balanced profile in the overnights. That signifies the auction is complete. Now, I understand we're in a very volatile, but we're hitting a liquid level and a balanced profile. This is a bell curve. This is a perfect bell curve. All right. That is an equal distribution. Now you have a gap fill at 6663, 666, geez. All right. And we closed at the lows yesterday. That's very bearish close. Okay. Now your most traded price over the overnight is literally yesterday's lows and the close. Okay. You need to jump above that. All right. So we are gapping down into last week's lows. A little bit of profit taking is happening here. Remember the 200-day moving average in the SPY. Okay. So two levels. Look at they line up. Gap fill in your midpoint of the overnights. 50% retracement of the overnight. That is such a strong level. And the most traded price of the overnight. Woo. Okay. All right. So let's get into the ES long and short trade scenarios. Okay. Let me open up this profile. See the price action, just 30 minutes bars. Okay. So, what was I just saying? Okay, let's look at this again. We are gapping down. Okay, we have a balanced profile in the overnight. We're hitting a liquid level of last week's lows. The market closed at the lows yesterday, happens to be the midpoint of the overnight and the most traded price of the overnight. If you get over that level, the 664s, about 6664s, this market has a potential to really rip up higher. Okay, that's just because volume is there. Okay, it's a big level. All right, now why don't we get right into scenarios here? Okay, I'm going to start with a bullish case. Now remember, this is trading. It doesn't mean I am bullish on the market. Okay, we just swept a swing low from the past. We hit last week's lows. All right, now I said that 6613 has a major demand zone there. So if we gap and go, I'm going to be watching very closely what we do. So if I see a gap and go into the demand of 6613, I want to see how the market reacts. I want to see the market internals, if they're weak off the open or they are like a canary in the coal mine. And I'm like, oh, this is not even weak internals. And I'm going to look for a bounce. Okay. And I'm going to look for a bounce. Now, if you get the higher low, it might trigger me into a long, depending on what gammas, market internals are, and what would I look for. Okay. If you wanted to scale out at last week's low, 6634, be my guest. However, I think your target would be gap fill, 6663. Right there. Happens to be the 50% retracement of the overnight and the most traded price of the overnight. Now, if you want a little more conservative, okay, let's say we gap down right into that 6613 demand, pump in there, and you say, you know what? I'm going to wait to see if we close back inside last week's range right there. And then you get the pullback to 6634s. That also could be a target gap fill. Now, if you happen to break through 6664, the VPOC of the overnight, okay, and you break it and you retest it that could be a real ripper. I'm telling you right now. There's not a lot of volume in yesterday's profile to stop it and in the overnight. So you can go right up to the end of that bearish FEG. The overnight high is 6695. What I think could happen if you really get some money flowing into the market, you're going to go past the 6700 psychological level, and I think you have a good chance to hit the 50% retracement of yesterday's range, which was a 6711. Okay, and there's a supply zone right there at 6715s. It could very well go right there. Now that's if we get a nice bullish charge. Okay, that's all I'm interested in. Now the market's pulling down farther as we speak. That's fine. Okay, moving on to the short scenario. Okay, now me, I'm not a gap and go guy. Right, the market's pushing down. That's not my style. Okay, it's just not. So obviously the market could just gap and go, and the way you're going to look at this 6613 demand, if it starts eating that up like it's nobody's business, then this market is going to just push lower. Okay, it's just going to push lower. You know, people are getting scared by the Fed. Okay, now what I'd say, what I would look for, is a little bit of the inverse of the long scenario I just gave you. Okay, let's say the market does push down into the 6613 demand, and you're not sure yet. You're like, I don't know, I'm more short bias. Wait until that market fills that gap. Once it fills that gap, it has to try to break through to 6664s. Remember, that's the overnight VPOC. It's yesterday's close. It's yesterday's lows. People are going to take profits with longs there. If you get a wick and fall, retest the 664s, that's your go to take out the overnight lows, okay, or the low of the day if it was made. And then you can see what we do into 6613s. Okay? Market's pushing down right now. Okay? That, my friends, is probably the only short I'm interested in. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna allow to be in that demand zone, that big demand zone, and go short. It just doesn't make sense. Okay? It doesn't make sense. Let's move on to the NASDAQ. Okay? The NASDAQ. Okay? So, let's look at it. Let's open it up. Balance profile. Okay? So, let's talk about the NASDAQ long and short trade scenarios. Balanced profile. Okay? The overnight volume is thinning out. It's thinning out. Okay? Remember, we just went through last month's lows. Okay, remember, NASDAQ has had money flows. It hasn't been as bearish as the ES has been. All right? So, let's go over some levels. Remember, we closed at the lows. Very bearish. The gap fill, 24616. That happens to be yesterday's close. That happens to be the overnight most traded price, the overnight VPOC. So, again, same as the ES. Very, very pivotal level. Very, very pivotal level. Okay? Now, we have demand. Where? Demand starts at 24348. I'm cognizant of that. Okay? I'm cognizant of that. Last week's lows are not even close. That's crazy. The 24213 is last week's lows, not even close to it. Okay? So, it's going to be played just like the ES. All right? So, let's get into it. Long scenario. Okay? We are at the overnight lows. We are gapping down. Okay? So, any kind of move lower, and we go into that demand that I talked about before. Pop into that. Oh, that's too thick. I'm bad. Okay. So if we gap and go, I want to see what we do into this demand. If we go into the demand, right, let me get you that level again. 24347s. 24348s, I'm sorry. 24348s. Okay? If we go into that demand, I want to see how the market reacts. Okay? If it bounces, comes back, and you get that higher low, like I said, all that thin volume, you're going to go and target gap fill 24616, the overnight VPOC and the close of yesterday. If the market breaks through that 24616 and comes back and holds it, you're going to take out those overnight highs, 24725s. Okay, there's a bearish FEG there. If this market really gets cooking, you're going to go down, you're going to go up to the 50% retracement of yesterday's 24811s. And wow, you could actually tag the 249s. I don't know if that's going to happen. Okay, now there's also a chance, okay, that where we're at now, 24444s, I don't know if we stay there. But let's just say the market opens and rips up higher, right? You're going to look for a pullback, a higher low. And if my market internals are firing and it's telling me, okay, money is into tech right now, that's your target to go to the gap fill. Okay? That's your longs. Now, shorts. It's going to be the same. I don't participate in gap and goes. I do not. So, regardless of what we do here at price, if we push lower, I'm going to look for that rip roaring rally to the gap fill, 24616. Remember, it's also the close in the overnight VPOC, most traded price of the overnights. If, and what people will, take profits there, and you get a nice wick and a retest, you get a lower high, that's your short, and you could just take all those longs out and try to test out that demand down there around the 243. Let me see that again. I keep forgetting what the level is. 24348s, and that could get really nasty. And maybe do you actually go and tag down last week's lows, 24213s? That could be it. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Could you go into this bearish FEG up here, and that starts around 24682s? Maybe, but I'm telling you right now, I think the market really could rally from that area. So I could say it could possibly roll over, but I think that I'm not a fan of that. All right. So really, I'm just a fan of that gap fill failure, and then take out the overnight lows and see if you could take out last week's lows. Right? That's my scenarios, folks. Like I said, I'm going to be watching these levels like a hawk. Okay? Now, if you enjoyed that, please smash the like button. That would be much appreciated. Okay? Now, hopefully you can join me every morning. Subscribe, set that alert, do this every morning. Give the market story, economic calendar, the market news, leaders and laggards, technical analysis. I just gave you the long and short trade scenarios in the ES and NASDAQ futures. Okay? Been doing this game plans for many years like this. Used to do it by myself, and it took a while to be able to look at the charts and come up with these game plans. I used to look at it and just stare at it and be like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know how to come up with a game plan. I don't know what I have to look for. Now I do. I have a system and a process. Okay? And hopefully you'll see that if you join me live. That's my Discord, Confluence Trading. Okay? Go to my YouTube homepage. You might go to my YouTube homepage, click on the link to sign up. What are you waiting for? Let me be your indicator. Now, in my Discord, okay, what do you get? Well, what do you get? Pre-market scenarios. Right after this is done, I have my AI agent will give the scenarios out. Okay? Now, my live market, I will give my macro about 9:15, my outlook, okay, and a condensed version of what I see during the day. Okay. Now, in my daily receipt is the more detailed. I break down what I'm seeing, and it's time stamped. Okay. And then it goes against every day, it goes against my pre market scenarios and if they played out or not and what trades I took. Okay. Now, you also get the gamma levels. Every day, I have a script that runs, and my AI agent looks at that script that runs and gives out the monthly and weekly flip points. This week happens to be OPEX, so I only look at the monthly gamma flip points. Every other week is weekly and monthly gamma flip points. Okay. Also, you get my weekly expected move indicator for free for Thinkorswim on that channel. All right. Add that to your charts. Trust me, it works. 70% of the time, the market trades in those ranges. Okay. So come join me live today. Ask me questions. All right. That's it for me, folks. Okay. Hope everybody has a great day. Remember, no trades are trades. Hope everybody has a green day. Remember, try to stick to your process and your rules. It's not always easy. I go long stretches of doing it and then I break a little bit. I might make a couple of mistakes, but try to stay on that. It's very important. It's very, very important. Okay? So, if I don't see you in my Discord, which I hope I do, I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Okay? Take it easy.